I'll be buried in my grave before I become a slave, yeah. That is what I heard them say way back in the day. I'll be buried in my grave before I become a slave, yeah, yeah, yeah. But it seems like since that day, yeah, yeah, we have sorely changed. Yeah, yeah. See, I'll be buried in my grave before I become a slave, yeah, yeah. That is what I heard them say, yeah. Way back in the day. I'll be buried in my grave, yeah, before I become a slave, yeah, yeah, yeah. But it seems like since that day, yeah, we have sorely changed. Whoa. Hey, hey. Whoa, oh, 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 oh. Whoa, oh, 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 oh.
And now, live from beautiful Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, you're watching My Fellow Americans with your host, Spike Cohen.
Hey, welcome to the show. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Welcome to the show. Thank you, guys. What? Oh, you. Welcome to My Fellow Americans. I am literally Spike Cohen. If you're watching this live, or I guess if you're not watching it live, however you're watching this, please share this video so that not just you, but you share the gift of Spike Cohen with everyone that you know, all of your friends. Please do that for your sake and theirs. If you are watching this on YouTube, please like the video. Please press the subscribe button. After you press the subscribe button, press the next button that says that you want a notification every time there's a video from us at Muddied Waters Media. Then go to your notification settings, turn the volume all the way up, pick the loudest ringtone or notification noise that you have, so that even if you're sleeping, I don't want you to miss even a single thing that is put out on our YouTube channel. I care too much about you for that to happen. As always, I'd like to thank Muddied Waters Media for giving me this opportunity to have this show. They pushed me. I've been thinking of doing this for a while, and I finally pulled the trigger and started on this. I would like to thank Kroger for my delicious Kroger-flavored water that I drink on this and every episode of My Fellow Americans. Oh, that is delicious water. Kroger, bringing you the only libertarian-flavored water that I know of. Good to the last drop, Kroger water. As always, shout out to Tehran Turks' mom and them. Power to the people. The intro and outro music that I use in this and every episode so far anyway of My Fellow Americans is by my great friend Joe Davi, Jodavi. You can check him out on Facebook. You can check him out on SoundCloud. You can check him out on the Bandcamp, where you can go and purchase all of his music at full price, please. Do not just play it on SoundCloud and but go and buy it. Go and buy his music. Great music, Joe Davi. My guest tonight I'm so excited to have her. She is inarguably the most famous conservative who hasn't blocked me on Facebook yet. She is the star of Red, Right, and True, and she is a growing star in the conservative millennial movement, and just an amazing person all around. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the beautiful and talented Miss Elly Maye. Elly, thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey, that was quite the intro. I'm like a little intimidated now because that was so amazing. Hi.
Hey, it's great to have you. Don't feel intimidated because I actually gave an
Thank
even
you.
better. I even gave an even better intro to Kroger Water, so don't feel bad.
That's true.
But thank
That's
you for
true.
joining. I'm very excited to have you on. You are one of my favorite people online. I love your humor. It's very similar humor to mine. I like watching your gushy relationship with your fiance Victor. Congratulations, by the way, you guys um, on your engagement.
Oh, thank you. Humor. That's sort of that. So true. And that's pretty much the only reason I haven't blocked you yet.
Nice.
I'm just kidding. Actually, we have similar views as well. But yeah. So can you hear me still?
I hear you perfectly. Yeah. No,
Okay, good. Okay, good. Yay! But yeah, similar senses of humor. We both don't really enjoy the government. I mean, maybe more than me, but still, it's always fun chatting with you and joking around on memes and stuff like that. It's
yeah,
the best.
exactly. Yeah, it is. You know, there's degrees of hatred of government. It is. I do consider it part of my life's work to convert you to anarcho-capitalism, but baby steps, one day at a time. We would get there together.
This is so exciting for me.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to have you on. I'm excited to have you on. I guess we can get right into what's going on with the news and everything right now. I don't know if you've heard this yet, but Alex Jones has been banned from almost the entire internet. He's off of Facebook. He's off of YouTube. He is off of what else is he off of? He's off of Instagram. What's that?
Yeah. Spotify, I think.
Yeah, he's off of Spotify. I think he's still on Twitter. Twitter is holding out. He's off of YouPorn, which I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why he was on YouPorn. Yeah, I'm not sure why he was on YouPorn, but he is no longer on YouPorn. So anyone who's concerned about Alex Jones when you're surfing for porn, rest easy. He's no longer on there. But I'm not sure what happened there. But it's been very interesting to watch how quickly it happened, and it's kind of unsettling. There's been a little bit of a or not a little bit, but there's been quite a bit of a debate on whether that is more of a free speech issue, that his freedom of speech is being censored, or if it's more of a freedom of association issue where these are private platforms and they have a right to ban who they want, or if it's something in between. I was curious what your thoughts were on that, and also how big of an Alex Jones fan you are anyway.
Now I want to be a bigger Alex Jones fan because of this kind of thing. And I don't not like him, if
Right.
that says anything. I have a lot of friends who really, really like him, and I think he does have some good input. He's counted as crazy. So I don't know why people feel so afraid of him, because most people already think he's crazy. So why censor him if people already discredit him because, he says stuff about the frogs turning gay and all of these things. But actually, speaking of frogs, this is to me sort of the frog in the boiling water, where they're going to start with Alex Jones, and because no one's going to defend Alex Jones except for people who believe in principle or people who are his loyal supporters. So they'll start with him, and then they'll slowly chip away at other people on the right who have voices in the media. They're cutting his income. Basically, they're killing jobs, because people who work for him, this is going to hurt them.
That's a good point.
So yeah, and that's not a surprise that people on the left are killing jobs. But they're systematically just censoring not only him but other people. It's been proven that they've shadow banned people on the right. But they're free to do that. So when you're talking about freedom of association, yeah, I do think they're free to do that. But it's this kind of forced conformity that they do through intimidation and intolerance. That is why so many people are walking away from the left. You see the walk away movement, and it is a huge thing going on, and the left tries to discredit that as Russian bots and things like that, but people are literally proving by the thousands that they are real people through selfie videos and things like that, and people are leaving because of this kind of fascist crap. And they're free to do it, but it doesn't make it right, and it doesn't make it appealing to stick around with people who want to censor Alex Jones.
Well, and that's the thing, right? So I my initial reaction, obviously very, propertarian, when I deal with this type of stuff, my first thought was, well, this is their property. They can do that if they want. But then, like you said, the next discussion is it right that they did it? And people are also free to, they're free to, kick whoever they want off, and people are free to respond to that. So I tend to agree with you that this may be, a test case, okay, we can kick off Alex Jones. Now, how about, say, I'm trying to think of another, prominent, controversial conservative, Steven Crowder. We'll kick off Steven Crowder next, or we'll kick off, the ones that are the most, and kind of work your way down until they're kicking out mainstream conservatives. Does that happen? And I guess the short answer is, I think if that does happen, if they go much further, I think you are going to start seeing people say, well, wait a second, I'm on here to, express myself, and if people that I want to express myself with, or people whose opinions I agree with, aren't welcome here, then they're, the beauty of the internet is that, people can find other platforms. I will be interested to see how, because supposedly I've heard, I don't know if there's been any analytics on this, but I've heard people say that more people than ever are visiting the InfoWars website and checking out what's on there. I'm interested to see if that will, if he'll see a big increase in people saying, hey, what even is Alex? Because, I mean, most people have probably never heard of Alex Jones before. So, it'll be interesting to see if they'll say, hey, what is Alex Jones, and go and check out his stuff and see, like if he gets a boost in ratings from it.
It's kind of like Milo. He was banned from Twitter. So I think maybe the fact that Twitter didn't ban Alex Jones, maybe that was because they already have a history of doing that to Milo. He was like the only person banned from Twitter. And then, they have this whole thing right now. So maybe they're just trying to save face. And I think Twitter is struggling anyways to hold on to users. But I'm glad that more people are going to his website. I'm actually very glad about that. I have a love-hate relationship with him, and it's just insane that the left thinks they are fighting fascism when they are literally shutting down free speech. And of course, it's not government protected free speech. I mean, it's just they are censoring people, and they're afraid of crazy people like Alex Jones that say how fragile is your agenda.
Yeah, it really does make you wonder, like you said, how fragile they are. But interestingly enough, so the gay frog thing, when I heard it, I'm like, okay, he's lost his mind. So it actually, what he said is actually true. I forget if it's not called atropine, whatever it's called. It's something that's in a lot of antidepressants or something like that, and it's something that is a chemical byproduct, and they have found that it makes frogs change their genders. They actually change their biological sex. So it doesn't turn them gay, but it does actually affect their it turns them into, if they're men, it turns them into women, and if they're female frogs, it turns them into male frogs, and vice versa. So even that had a bit of truth to it. But then, he did it in his Alex Jones way of, I don't want the frickin' frogs gay. But even that was true. So, it's one of those, second look at Alex Jones possibly being the, a purveyor of truth.
Yeah, exactly. And even when things are proven true, the left will still say, you're crazy, that isn't true. And it's impossible to argue sometimes.
Another, in sort of in that same vein, we're seeing where Candace Owens, that's her name, right? Candace Owens?
Yes.
Yeah, Candace Owens, that she went and tried to get some food somewhere, or get I don't know, something to eat or whatever.
Perfect.
And she was like tracked down. I guess I don't know if someone tipped her off or they were following her, but what looked like several dozen or 100 or so activists, left-wing activists, tracked her down or knew she was going to be there and started screaming at her, and they were screaming F white supremacy, which was kind of funny because they were like pretty much all white people screaming F white supremacy at a black woman. But all that aside, they great optics there. But they screeched at her while she was just trying to enjoy her meal or whatever, and ended up I think she ended up leaving because it was just too much. And is that the new? What does that say about? And I think you and I might be a little bit different on this. I see little difference policy-wise between the authoritarian left and the authoritarian right, but there's definitely a big difference socially in terms of how the interaction happens. I don't see a lot of shouting down from the right. And maybe it's because they're in charge right now, but I don't recall a lot of it during the Obama years. And if someone's watching this and wants to correct me, feel free to comment with something I'm forgetting. But is this, is the left, is this, they're how they've always done it? Or is this just they're so upset that Trump got elected? They're so upset that, things are happening that they don't like or that they're being told not to like, that they have just, they're finished with, trying to build coalitions and they just want to scream at people now?
So, well, first of all, in the Obama years, you saw the Tea Party movement, which was just a bunch of, people gathering with their American flags and probably a Budweiser beer or something like that. I mean, it was nothing like this when they were protesting high taxes, whatever. Anyway, the reason they are being like this is truly, I believe, because of the media. And in order to have outrage, you have to post these crazy stories that make people really upset. Elitist, pretentious, literally the most delusional people. And I'm not talking about just regular Democrats. I'm talking about these crazy leftists. Because it's scary and they like to point the finger. Jim Acosta was saying something about he's worried about violence happening when it's like there's been just a montage of violence in the last couple months from the left. Just it's so scary. And then what they do is they don't even let her talk. They just start screaming all at the same time.
Right, shouting
they just
down.
start screaming and blowing whistles. And it's, they think this is literally my favorite tactic of the left when they say that you're a self-hating person, that you're doing stuff against your own best interest. First of all, no, you do not know me. And second of all,
right.
The people on the right, not all of them, obviously more, some are more authoritarian, etc., but they are trying to be independent and they are trying to live and let live. Leave me alone. That's literally what most of us believe in.
Right.
And if that is what they think is going against our best interests, I'm seriously concerned about their mental state of mind, because I don't know how that's a problem. And actually, I believe liberals in the past have felt that way too. This is why collectivism is just disgusting, and there's no room for a different approach to society. They accuse you of being a Nazi if you don't conform to their beliefs, which is insanely delusional. And tolerance and collectivism just can't coexist because they all conform this way, because they give into crazy media propaganda that tells them that people on the right are trying to be Hitler in Germany. And it's like, I actually just want you to leave me alone, and I want to leave you alone, and I don't care what you do. Just leave me alone and stop taxing the crap out of everybody, please. That's all we're asking. I don't know why that's so crazy.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing with collectivism, and there's this sort of like, I guess it's collective, they're collectivizing the whole thing. So it's like, if you don't want, taxpayer funded, government-run healthcare, well, then you don't want people to have healthcare. Or
want people to die.
You want people to die. If you don't want a top-down, centrally planned school system, you want children to be dumb and not go to school. Like it can't possibly be that this system isn't working and that services are best. The best way to get services is from competing providers in a free market instead of a violent monopoly that, is going to tell you how it works. It couldn't possibly be that we clearly just want everyone to die and also be uneducated until they die. It can't possibly be another way. And it's like you said, there's a little bit of an unhinged thing there. I've said, and I mean, there are certainly things, that I find that, with for example, like, border security and things like that. There are certain things that I find that the right will do that within certain things, but the left definitely, it seems like everything has to be at least somewhat controlled by government. And so that's why I've always said I definitely agree more in principle anyway with people on the right than on the left, because, put it this way, we both want government to be smaller than it is now. we then disagree exactly how small we want it to be. I'd like it to be so tiny that I can drown it in the toilet. But in the meantime, I'm okay with seeing it go in that direction, toilet direction. And the left seems to be wanting it to go. There may be a couple things they want to get rid of, but for the most part, they want to, see it, spiral out of control the other way.
Yeah, it's amazing. They're calling to abolish ICE. And I was like, wow, it's the first time the left has actually wanted to shrink government. Good job, guys.
I was with them. I was like, why stop there? And then they're like, no, we just want to stop there. I'm like, no, there's so many other alphabet. There's so many. Start with A. There's so many ATF. No, just ICE. I'm like, oh, damn it. All right, never mind. Or BATF, whatever they're called now. I don't get it. I know. I haven't followed it closely. Maybe you have, but there are these right-wing groups like Patriot Prayer, and they dress up like superheroes. It seems like, and they like go out to like Portland, and I think they're going to DC next. And they have these protests where I'm not sure exactly what they're doing. But then Antifa follows them around, and they basically get in these giant fights on the street. It's Double Dragon or something I feel like I'm playing, I'm a kid playing, street fighting games again. But they and it seems like it's just kind of crazy because it's like, it seems like, and I'm not following it very closely, but Patriot Prayer, these other groups, they don't seem like they're prepared for a fight, but they don't say, let's go out and beat the crap out of the left. It's more like, let's go out and prepare yourself because Antifa follows us around and tries to fight with us. It's kind of crazy. And it's, the whole time Antifa's fighting them, they're screaming, die fascist scum and down with neo-Nazis and all this stuff. And it's like, and again, I don't know Patriot Prayer that well. From what I've read about them, they don't seem to be neo-Nazis. Like, they're definitely on the right. And there's certainly some right authoritarians, and there have definitely been like the thing in Charlottesville and other things where neo-Nazis have shown up and kind of ruined things. But for the most part, it seems like most of these groups are they're like standard fare, young Republican pro-Trump people that, want to go and have a rally and not be beat up. Is that maybe you've been following this more? Is that sort of what it seems like to you, or
Yeah, I briefly saw something about that, and I think that's all kind of silly. And I think it's good to protest in some cases, but I don't know, if you're just being followed around by Antifa, it's just kind of pointless. But I think, really quick, making a quick point, the biggest thing that I have a problem with is the left thinking, like you were talking about, like we just want people to die, and because we don't believe in their solutions to certain problems. I think the biggest thing that I realized when I sort of had my eyes opened about politics and modern left and right situations was that we have no longer looked to ourselves to solve problems. We don't look our neighbors to be like, hey, like, let's help our so-and-so to, pay for his surgery or anything like that. Not that we should resort to that, but the idea of being self-sufficient instead of going directly to the government for a law to be made is completely it's not a mindset anymore at all.
Right.
Everyone's first instinct is to say, okay, we need a law made. We need the government to fix
Someone
this.
needs to do something. Yeah.
Yes. And that is just not the case. So you have people who believe, hey, maybe we could be more self-sufficient. We could be independent. We can look to ourselves to solve, homelessness problems. There's hunger problems. And we actually have the resources to start doing that ourselves instead of going to the government and say, hey, forcefully tax everybody to pay for, food for so-and-so, when you could literally just go help feed people yourself. I kind of want to circle there, but so you have people believing stuff like that. And then you have people believing that government is the answer, and they're clashing, and, it's crazy, and it's so silly. But I do believe the right needs to make more of a presence in certain areas. I saw a tweet about how if Young Turks were pulled like Alex Jones, people would be outside protesting and things like that. because they're
That's
louder
true.
and they do more to get attention to things, which I don't even necessarily agree with. But in some cases, I think it's smart to sort of play by their rules if we want a chance to preserve any amount of liberty.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. The left, whether they're in office or not, and whether it's effective or not, they know how to make a crowd come out and scream for a couple hours, for the better part of a day at least. Again, whether not, smarter people than me can say how effective that's been, but I mean the Occupy protests, the anti-war movement that suddenly stopped existing for 8 years, from 2009 to beginning of 2017. All of a sudden, they became anti-war again. Right around the end of January of 2017, they were anti-war again. We're against war. We don't like war. We were busy for a few years there, but but they get out there. It's very interesting because Trump, at least so far, appears to be far less warlike than, or at least in terms of the actual, bombings that he's having, done, and drone attacks and whatever else that he's having done, than Obama or Bush or even Clinton were. And so the anti-war left that was ready to, protest Trump, who was going to start World War III, have like, they're just mad. They're still out there. They're mad about all sorts of things, but it's like they sort of lost their momentum because it appears to be less bombing going on now than when, I mean, he hasn't started a war at this point. Obama was, correct me if I'm wrong, but at this point, Obama had already announced we were going to be staying in Afghanistan. I mean, Trump definitely, I'm not I'm not a Trump fan. He definitely talks a bunch of crap about bombing the hell out of everybody. But in terms of what he's doing, he's pretty much stayed the course. And if anything, kind of, he de-escalated Syria, and seems to not want to get into wars. He's great with talking and trying to. He's sort of the opposite of the speak softly and carry a big stick. He's like scream loudly and threaten the hell out of everyone and let them know you have a big stick and maybe they'll leave us alone type of thing. Which he hasn't bombed any new countries yet, so they're not there. But no, the left definitely likes to get out and protest. Do you think it's just a difference in mindset? Like you said, the right tends to look. Again, there are certain things where the right can get collectivist too, especially if it's something that's authorized in the Constitution. There's definitely like, well, the Constitution says we need to be, collectively doing this thing, and so that sort of gives way to any kind of individualism. But with that said, there is definitely more of an individualistic mindset in the right in general. Do you think that's part of why they aren't likely to, form these massive, collectives and go out in the street and scream at everyone?
It's exactly why, and it's why we have such a hard time with the culture and things like that, because we don't think in terms of the masses. We think of things in terms of the individual. I don't care what you're doing, so I'm not going to go out and make a huge group of people to protest a thing that I think should be changed through law. So, I mean, it does occasionally happen, but it is completely the mindset of individualism versus collectivism. And again, it's why we have such a hard time with the culture. And, you see the left attacking people for what they like on Twitter. You see the left attacking people, for what church they go to or things like that. And you will not see that the right won't be looking through Twitter to see what leftists, like, unless they're attacked. So if a leftist is like, hey, this person liked so-and-so on Twitter, then the right will probably, return fire and dig up their Twitter. But it's not like the people on the right care enough to be like digging through people's Twitter. Oh, they misgendered someone. No one cares.
Right.
I don't care about this. I literally have bills to pay. I don't care. And it's selfish for you to think that I do care. I don't. I just want to get groceries and pay bills. I don't care what you do with your life.
Right. Yeah. So there was recently, and again, this was sort of, like you said, sort of a counterattack type thing. After there was some doxing of prominent conservatives, things that they had said and done. Mike Cernovich, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. He was able to dig up something from Dan Harmon, who's the guy behind Rick and Morty. And he found some old, video he did that was a spoof of Dexter, and it was where he was like, it was pretty. He was like simulating. He had like baby dolls and simulating having sex with them or something like that. And the whole thing was that it was a spoof of like okay, this upsets you, but Dexter murdering people doesn't. But again, he was also murdering bad people, if I recall. But anyway, all that to say, that was if I recall, a reactionary thing, that it was like someone on the right had been, doxxed on Twitter or whatever. And so he, in retaliation, they went after Dan Harmon, who I didn't know was even considered a leftist, but I don't know. It really, and the interesting thing is that it really doesn't matter. Because again, we've talked about on the right, there's people more authoritarian. They say we a lot more. We need to do this. We need to do that. And there's people that are more. I mean, I'm probably what would be considered libertarian right, as far libertarian and as far right as exists. But it really doesn't matter what you are. To Antifa, we're all fascists. Like, it doesn't matter if we're not Antifa. If we're even moderate Democrats, like whatever we are that isn't, as far to the left as possible. I mean, everyone is, they beat up trash cans and then scream about Nazism. Like, that pretty much everything and everyone is a Nazi except for them. And there's not really any pleasing people like that.
Yeah. They're crazy.
Yeah.
And it's sad. And I've seen more about them in the news in the last week. I was just thinking, gosh, I haven't heard of anything about them in a long time. And I was so happy about it. And now this past week, I'm like, oh my gosh, please stop. Go home.
You know what it was? They probably were getting the same sense you were. They're like, we haven't been in the news recently.
Yeah.
And all this other stuff going on. We need to get our name back out there. I've yet to meet anyone who wasn't already a hardcore, revolutionary left winger who likes what they're doing. Like, I know a lot of, people on the left who are very, very left wing. They're, reasonable. They're not extremists or revolutionaries or whatever, but they're on the left very solidly. And they're like, why don't these people stop doing this? They're not making, they're not, in their mind, they're like, Trump is this horrible president. And all you're doing is distracting from that. And I will say this, it's hard to look more outrageous than Trump. And Antifa easily does that every time they do anything. Trump tweeting something pales in comparison to several hundred people going out and like just beating up random people at a school or something because Ben Shapiro is going to talk there. Like, it's just kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually had originally intended on talking about this in the last episode, and we got off on such a long tangent about other stuff that we never got around to it. My favorite subject that is happening right now in the world, 3D printed guns. I am so excited. Even though it's blown out of proportion, you can't just press a button on a printer and get a ghost gun that with plastic bullets. Like, it's as it is right now, it's still easier to like buy the parts and assemble it yourself than print it out on a $10,000, $20,000 printer. But the fact but we're headed there, right? Like, I remember what the internet was like when I was a teenager. It was dial up, and there wasn't, if you wanted to download a 360 resolution video, it took 3 hours and it was 2 minutes long. Like, the technology will eventually get to a much more, in my mind, amazing place where you just, I want this gun, and you buy the material to get it, and you press a few buttons and it prints out the different parts, and then you put it together. And you're like, I got a ghost gun. Like, people get really wide-eyed when I get excited about it, but I'm like, everyone's gonna have whatever gun they want, and it doesn't, there's nothing anyone can do about it. And so Cody Wilson, I have a huge, I guess, anarchist crush on Cody Wilson, or whatever you want to call it, but big fan of his defense distributed. He's the guy that had the files. Let me ask you, what is your opinion, before we go on to this whole rabbit hole, what is your opinion on the whole 3D printed gun thing?
Well, okay, I have a little story. So in November in Rancho Tehama, California, a man carried out a mass shooting with 2 ghost guns. Actually, it was just 1 ghost gun, but he had 2. And it was in California, where AR-15s are essentially illegal.
Right.
And what did he have a ghost gun version of? An AR-15.
Right.
So he skirted around these gun laws. And this was not discussed for as long as I can remember. And guess what? It's still not being discussed.
I was going to say, I don't even remember that. Yeah.
5. Yeah, I'm sure no one's heard of this, whoever's listening. He killed 5 people. He shot up an elementary school. I don't think any elementary kids died, but the media would not cover this because he got around the gun control measures. And I talk about this all the time because it's just a perfect example of the manipulating media and, whatever fits their agenda, they'll use. And both sides do that, don't get me wrong. But unfortunately, we have a very far left media. But so yeah, this has gone on, for a very long time. And now the left, since enough time has passed, has decided, okay, 3D guns are now our boogeyman. My dad, sorry to throw him under the bus, especially on his birthday, but he's a Democrat, and
happy birthday anyway.
Yeah, happy birthday, Dad. He's super anti-gun, like super anti-gun. Wow. Especially lately. And like he won't even speak to me about guns. He won't hear anything I have to say, which is annoying, but whatever. So
still happy birthday though.
He was talking about being concerned about 3D guns just a couple days ago. I was visiting.
Right.
And I was like, now you're concerned? I'm like, this has been going on for so long. A mass shooting was carried out by one of these in November in California, where they are illegal and AR-15s are illegal. Why wasn't this talked about? Why weren't you concerned about it then? Blah, blah, blah. And he's just like, wait, what are you saying? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's the Democrats who don't want you to hear about these things. And it's just so frustrating. And I think maybe that kind of made him see things differently. I doubt it. But yeah, no one hears about this. And it's just a perfect example of how you can get around gun control laws. And the guy is totally crazy. His mugshot is just insane. And he was even barred from getting pistols and things like that prior to this. Anyway,
so he was already banned from owning any weapons.
Yes. He was like on a list.
So he didn't care. So oddly enough, this tends to mean that maybe criminals don't care about what the rules are. If I'm hearing you right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't, and I maybe I just, as I'm listening to you talk, I think I'm going to start saying, if you ban 3D printed guns, if you outlaw 3D printed guns, only outlaws will have 3D printed guns. So get your own 3D printed gun.
It's so stupid. Yep. It's just, they just need a boogeyman all the time. And it's frustrating because obviously we all care so much about when people are killed.
Of course.
We just have different solutions to how to prevent that, but the left won't even hear a word we have to say. And I will be that type of conservative to say the Constitution does give us that right, or, the Second Amendment is there. And we should be able to preserve it. And it's so frustrating to hear some of what these leftists will say. And then, they're surrounding themselves with armed security and all of this crap. And it is very, very hypocritical. It's very frustrating. And it's a broken record. So I feel just cliche and unoriginal talking about it. But it's frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to, I appreciate the fact that you almost apologize for referencing the Constitution on my show, but it's fine because it's actually true. I find myself one of the few times that I'm arguing, not necessarily in favor of the Constitution, but the reality of it is talking about guns, that the founders are fairly clear in when it was written. And we can have a whole show about why that was put there, so that Patrick Henry wouldn't round all of them up and kill them. But, essentially it came down to, it was unequivocal that, people were not supposed to be restricted in their firearms ownership at all. And yes, they were students of history. Yes, they knew that it wouldn't always be muskets. And yes, the idea was that if the government can have it, we can have it. And we're not even necessarily concerned about the government having it. This is just about the fact that people can have it. That's what that is about. Now, again, we can go into a whole thing about how the first 7 articles further restrict our rights to the point that the Bill of Rights don't matter. But all of that aside, the Second Amendment is very clear, which is why whenever you get in front of a constructionist court, they are pretty clear in saying, no, that's what it said. It said that, whether you like it or not, it said that you can have this. The 3D printed gun thing is also a First Amendment issue or a freedom of speech issue, in that they're just sharing publicly available schematics and transposing it onto like a CAD program so that a printer can print it. They're not selling you anything. They're not. They're literally just saying, "Here's how to make this." It's just an elaborate way of saying, "Here's how to make this," and that's not illegal. And if you made that illegal, that would, I mean, obvious slippery slope there. That they could, what else can I not say how to make? So no, I agree with you there. I find it funny that your dad is anti-gun. I always find that funny when you have people that are, that their parents are like to the left and they're like hardcore conservatives. I always find that funny.
Yeah, he's big on the environment, big anti-gun. Oh, he's I love him. Like, we're so close, but yeah, it's big time with politics.
Now, what would you say? When did you what was that moment that brought you to being a conservative, or was it sort of an evolution that happened over time?
Well, my mom is conservative, and so growing up, they're divorced. My parents are divorced, so I had both sides sort of to look at.
Okay.
But she actually, this is so crazy. I was like, I like that Obama is helping, people with Obama phones, whatever. And she's like, what? No, that is coming out of someone's paycheck. I'm like, what do you mean? They're free. Like, this is literally what I thought. And I went to a good school. It's literally what I thought.
Well, they don't teach you this stuff at school. Yeah.
And she's like, no, like, and then from there, I'm like, you cannot justify that. That's crazy.
Right.
So that was kind of my aha moment. But honestly, it was that and Rush Limbaugh. I can't imagine you're a fan of him, but he really helped me see things differently, or at least just shed light in areas that I didn't know were so dimmed, I guess. Like, when you grow up hearing so much leftist crap, and then someone kind of shines a light on it, you're like, oh my gosh, wait, what? How was I so brainwashed? So,
well, he has a very compelling program. I actually don't have a lot of bad to say about Rush, other than I think he's very smart, and I think he does have very strong principles. I think he completely suspends them when it comes to certain politicians, namely Trump. And that's a calculated business decision. But regardless, I mean, look, I'm making $0, so who am I to talk about what someone does on their show? But he's actually compelling listening. I've only listened to a few of his episodes, and this would have been when Bush was. I don't think I've ever even listened to him when Obama was president. So just to give you perspective on when it was, but it's definitely a compelling program, and it's there's a reason he's able to talk for 3 hours straight and have millions of people tune in every day or every weekday. He's definitely got a compelling program, and there's definitely, I'm sure there are plenty of people whose red pill experience started with Rush, or I don't know how many started with Hannity, but definitely with Rush. I don't want to badmouth people, but I definitely think Rush is compelling viewing. So I'm not surprised to hear that was a big part of what draw you to it. Talking specifically about the thing with the 3D printed guns, Cody Wilson he had an agreement with the State Department that would allow him to basically show these things on his website, that where you can download the files to the 3D print guns on the $25,000 printers that everyone has. But at the last minute, a court order put an injunction on him, banning him from hosting the files. And just to show how ridiculous the whole thing is, there's already a ton of websites that have it. It's all fully available. They're arguing in court, or they're awaiting a court date to argue over whether they can host these things. That you can already, there's a website, codeisfreespeech.com. There's a ton of, like, it's already out there, right? Like, this is true Pandora's box stuff, which is what I love about it. Like, there's nothing this is the beauty of the internet and the decentralized nature of it. Once it's out there, that's it. You can arrest the person that put it out there. You can, draw and quarter them. You can throw them in jail for the rest of their lives. You can, execute them. You can round up, hundreds of people, anyone that has it. It's out there. It's already out there. There's nothing anyone can do about it. And I love that. I think if I were an anti-gun person, I would be horrified right now. But there's nothing that can be done about it. And that's always interesting to me. But so it appears that Trump hasn't talked a lot about it, but it seems like he appears to be against it. He said that it doesn't make sense, makes no sense to him. And the Democrats are definitely against it. It's the worst thing that ever happened since the last thing that they were outraged about. The NRA released a statement. They sort of sidestepped whether they support 3D gun printing, and they focused on the fact that it's already. They were focusing on some of the politicians who said, "Oh, this will allow you to make undetectable guns and." And all of that. And they basically said, well, that's already illegal, so there's no need for any new legislation. But they didn't really come right out and say, whether they support this or not. The NRA has supported, I don't think they supported the bump stock ban, but there have been some, gun control legislation they've supported in the past. In my mind, the NRA is more of a gun manufacturing lobby than a gun rights lobby. But all in all, it will be interesting to see where they side on this. Do you think that there's and maybe not just with guns, but do you think, especially with the internet, that there's a schism between the actual activists and the lobbies? And with the internet, does that even matter anymore?
So I'm not the biggest gun person. So I can't, I'm not an expert in this area at all.
Right.
I'm super passionate about defending the Second Amendment, to be honest. Especially, right. I will play the woman card as well, because of that fact.
Absolutely.
So I'm just passionate about defending it. I don't know conflict between the two. I would say probably. But back to Trump really quick. Whenever he talks anything about the NRA or anything like that, I have a hard time trusting what he's saying, because I'm in the cabinet room or something and he's like, oh, you're just afraid of the NRA. He said that to a congressman or something. And then the next week he's like totally on board with the same guy. I'm just like, it's just the art of the deal, apparently. So yeah, I don't, when it comes to what he's saying, I wouldn't know, especially with them. It's people have so much power in certain areas, and you just have no idea what's going on behind the scenes and what blackmail is happening and what money is being transferred. It's just such a disgusting mess in DC. And I would imagine there's conflict in many areas. So.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, with Trump, I have learned to, for many reasons, take Trump as a combination of entertainment value, and both for what he says and how he does it and how so many people react to it. Like, it's the worst thing that ever happened and we're all going to die because he said this. But also, I don't really he'll say, okay, I'm going to do such and such, or I believe in such and such. And then however many hours or days later, it's the exact opposite. And he's just as passionate in that direction. And I can't imagine being a legislator or someone in his cabinet trying to work. I can't imagine. So to me, I sit back and enjoy it. I only bring it up because it seems like there are definitely some. I met a lot of people this week online who were like, I support the Second Amendment, but, and then they talk about why they're against 3D guns. And I think there's definitely some people, especially the older set, that the idea that no, you don't have to go to a store to buy it. No, you don't have to register it. You literally just print out files. And we're not there yet. There's still a lot of steps involved, but the technology will get there where eventually it will be like, I want this gun. I'm going to buy X amount of, ballistic plastic printing material. And now I have a ghost gun or whatever. And so a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm pro gun. It's like, oh, you mean you can anyone can print one out right now? No, I'm not pro that.
I had a caller call in once to a show I was hosting, and they are an NRA member, and she was telling me all of the things that she was anti about guns, and I'm like, okay.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, there are people that are like, yeah, I'm a lifetime NRA member. Oh, yes. But you definitely shouldn't be able to do this. I'm like, okay. Well, then, what? Then why are you this passionate? It's like, I want to be able to do this, but no, that person, no, they definitely, I don't want them to be able to do that. In fact, the NRA actually, there was legislation, they supported initially the legislation that said that if you had a felony, that you lose your ability, federal offense, that you lose the ability to have a weapon. And it's like, okay, but why? And they were like, yeah, because felons shouldn't have weapons. I'm like, do you know how many felonies there are? I mean, there are a lot of things that we do each week that at least some of it might be a felony. Very, very slippery slope there. But
that's true.
Anyway, so as I'm sure you know, big election, or I guess moderate-sized election day yesterday in Kansas, Michigan, Missouri, and maybe that was just it. Maybe it was just Kansas, Michigan, and Missouri. And results were all over the place. In Ohio, there was a special election in Ohio. This was kind of similar to the one that happened in Georgia last year. It's a district that's very safe Republican, but the Democrats were convinced that they were going to win it, and they put all this money into it. They outspent the Republicans several times on what the Republicans spent on it. And the whole ridiculous thing is that this election is only through to November. So they're going to have this election. Okay. Yeah. So it's not like this is for another 2 years, because it's a congressional seat. So they're going to be, it's only to fill that time between now and I guess January when they sit the new Congress. So, but it seemed, I guess it was going to be a morale booster, that kind of a victory for them, that, rally around the tree. We won a district that, we never win. They lost. They lost the election. It's close, so it looks like there's going to be a recount, but the Republican was up like 2,000 votes. And so in my mind, okay, special election, you were able to focus all of these resources into this. The blue wave is seeming like it's going to be less and less of what I'm told it's going to be, and I'm told it's going to be a tsunami. I can't imagine you're about to tell me you think the blue wave is real, but just how exaggerated do you think it is?
It's so stupid. Sorry, it's so dumb. These Democrats, okay, they see the size of Trump's rallies. Before I could even have uttered the word Trump, President Trump, I was against Trump. Very anti-Trump, whatever. I went to one of his rallies to see what was going on. I, at the time, was horrified, but it was insane. And they are still that large. And the fact that they think there's going to be some blue tsunami is seriously stupid. And I like to be sort of objective when I look at these things, because I don't want, in November to be eating my words. So I'm truly saying that's insane. Right. And they're saying it's like all of these people, part of the walkaway movement, there's so many, and they blame Russia for everything. So, a Democrat loses last night, and Alyssa Milano tweeted that it was Russia because there was a Green Party candidate who took away votes, and suddenly the Green Party candidate is Russia.
That's never happened before, by the way.
Yeah, just get real for 5 minutes so you're not scared again about losing. You have to. So there's 5 stages of grief, right? They do not have the acceptance part of those 5 stages. Right. They are always in denial. They are always freaking out in anger. There's no acceptance. They just will refuse to take on that stage of the grieving.
They cycle between the first 4 and never get to.
Yes, they are. It's like this horrible cycle, and I feel so sorry for them. I hope someone helps them.
Well, it's crazy because I did not, and for those who do follow me, I'm not good at predicting how elections are going to turn out. I'm good at predicting how policy is going to turn out, unfortunately, because I just take the most pessimistic view, and 90% of the time that's true. But I'm not good at. I did not think Trump was going to win. He did lose the popular vote, whatever that's worth. But I did not think he was going to win Michigan. I didn't think he was going to win Wisconsin. I didn't think he was going to. He didn't win Virginia. I didn't think he was going to win Pennsylvania. I thought Hillary was going to win it. But again, when he didn't, it was like, oh wow, he did. He actually won. This ought to be fun. People that were convinced. But I was also following the polling that it was tightening up towards the end there. So the people that were like, oh, Hillary's way ahead, that was polling that was like 2, 3, 4 weeks before the election. That's not reliable in that big of an election. And there was a major change happening. And it was mostly just Hillary people dropping off. There wasn't a lot of growth in support for Trump. It was just Hillary people going, never mind. And so anyway, to think that it was there has been no example. There's been no example of Russia hacking and changing votes or anything like that, or anyone doing that. What there may have been taking the worst case scenario, is that the people in the Trump campaign reached out to people in the Russian government who released information that was true about Hillary Clinton, which again is a crime. But even the worst case scenario is just that it was still Hillary's fault. Like, it was still because Hillary was so terrible and stuff about her was being released that people said no one's vote wasn't counted, or I'm sure some people, there wasn't any mass lack of vote counting or vote changing or anything like that. It was just people that were being exposed to something that maybe wasn't legal, but it was probably good for them to hear that Hillary was, a total scumbag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I mean, there are so many people who, again, are in denial about that whole thing, where they truly want to think that there was collusion. And it doesn't help when Trump is, talking to Putin and in closed door meetings and things like that. I mean, I don't like of that. But also, it's just like, that's business as usual. You just go on with it or whatever. I am friends with two liberals. One believes there's collusion and the other is like, absolutely not. That is a conspiracy theory. And so, you meet different kind of people, but It's just so silly. And to keep blaming Russia and, a green candidate, that's Russia. Like, guys, because you're going to be so sad in November. I feel so bad.
There's never been third-party candidates prior to Russia, right? Like, I mean, there's never been, because the Libertarian Party certainly doesn't take, some votes away from, probably more from Republican than Democrat. That's never happened either. In fact, what's his name? Al Gore versus Bush. That was another one where, he lost because of Florida. And if even, I don't remember, half of the people that voted for Ralph Nader had voted for Al Gore, he would have won the election. Well, I have news for you. That's not because of Russia. It's because those people hated Al Gore as much as they hated George Bush and didn't care that their vote might mean that Bush would lose or Bush would win, because they also hated Al Gore. So, and again, I'm a libertarian. I don't vote libertarian. I don't vote. But if I did vote, it would probably be Libertarian Party. And I don't know of a Republican I'd vote for. So that's not Russia. I wouldn't vote for them. So, that's ridiculous to think that. I do tend to think, and again, my predictions are garbage. So take this with not even a grade. Just take it and throw it in the trash. I do personally think that the Democrats will barely win enough seats to take the House. I think they're going to still lose seats in the Senate because of how those elections, the seats that are up for grabs this time around. I think they're going to lose seats in the Senate. I think they're going to not do that well in the state the gubernatorial and state legislative elections. I think they might take the House, which scares me because Trump. I'm not sure how Trump's going to deal with a Democrat House. I think there's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of deal making that I probably will not like.
Yeah.
But I don't think. I think anything short of this. I hearing them. They're like, first we win in November, and then we try Trump for treason, and it's like anything short of a complete Democrat takeover of both houses, followed by the military arresting Trump and in being tried on the public, like anything short of this fantasy that is not going to happen, and they could even possibly not win the House. I think it's possible that's going to be even more devastating to them than Trump being elected was.
Yeah, and this is sort of sidestepping, but did you hear about the Kentucky Secretary of State or whatever? Her name's Allison Lundgren Grimes,
Allison Lunderman Grimes or something like that. Yeah.
She was like making fun of Rand Paul being assaulted when his neighbor hit him or broke his ribs or whatever.
Right.
She was like, many folks say that Rand Paul can't be beat. They're worried he might be too well liked. I don't buy that. Just ask his neighbor. He can be beaten. And so all I think about is Michelle Obama saying hi. And it's like, really, because I know Trump says like, I want to punch him in the face. Right. But this is like, I thought liberals and the left were all about going high, taking the high road. This is another reason that they are not going to win in the midterms.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of that. I only know that name because when she ran against, I think it was Mitch McConnell, she had this ridiculous ad that just kept saying her name over and over again. And it was like
Yeah.
Allison Lenderman Grimes. And it was like the sing-songy thing. And so I'll never forget that name. So it was effective that way, in that I'll never forget the name Allison Lenderman Grimes. But I also hated it, and I hate that fact. And even if she agreed with me politically, I wouldn't vote for her because of what she's done to my brain, hardwiring it to remember that absurd name. So yeah, so but I hadn't heard of that. But so the Democrats appear to have lost the special election, which again does not bode well for November. That lady Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, everyone she endorsed lost in the primaries. That was going to be a big, the post Bernie Democratic Socialist wave fell apart at the seams. On the, I guess, more revolutionary side of the Republican Party, Austin Peterson, who was a candidate for president with the Libertarian Party the last time around, he lost to Gary Johnson. He ran and came in fourth in Missouri. And it felt a lot like, I didn't follow all the election results, but just seeing like what happened, it seemed like most voters kind of doubled down on their party's establishment and were like, no, we're going to go with a safe bet. And it seems like both sides are so scared that the other side's going to win. They're like, we're not messing around at all. We're just going to pick who we perceive to be the safest candidates and go from there. It was kind of interesting to me.
Alexandria, she said in Bernie's video, she's like, let's flip it red.
Yeah.
I don't like, why would you even post that, Bernie? Are you senile? Like, I feel bad for saying that, but honestly, he posted that on his Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm like, can you fix the video?
Yeah, this wasn't a live goof. You like put it on there afterwards, yeah.
Oh my gosh, what a mess. They're just a mess all around. Even Candace Owens, yesterday I was watching Fox. Yes, I watch Fox. She was talking about how the Antifa people who were attacking her and Charlie Kirk in the restaurant stunk because they don't bathe as like a protest to society, because society wants you to like wash yourself or something. So they literally are, being so rebellious that they're like, no, we're not gonna, smell good. It's insane. They're just a mess.
It's like anything that you say. Well, there's that meme that says, oxygen, that Trump tweets, I love oxygen, sweet, sweet life-giving oxygen. And the left, put bags on their heads and
Yes.
until they choke to death. Cause, I'm not going to, conform to society's need for oxygen. So, I felt bad for the Peterson people. I have a lot of friends that were, Peterson Freedom Ninjas and all of that. So shout out to Freedom Ninjas if you're watching this. I definitely empathize with you. I personally never thought he was going to win, and not because he didn't do as good of a job as he possibly could have, and his supporters definitely did. But most voters, and this is why I'm not a huge fan of thinking that there's an electoral. I'm sure, I support people that think that there is, and I anyone who wants to try, I'm certainly welcome to. But most people want to be controlled to some extent, and so, and Austin Peterson, who again, I look like an extremist even compared to him. But on the spectrum of what's considered normal politics, the things that he was, saying that he supported as basically a minarchist libertarian, people were, horrified. And so he came in fourth. Now, with that said, if you look at his numbers that he did in the primary, if a member of the Libertarian Party got those kind of numbers, they'd be, celebrating in the streets that they did that well. So it's really just the fact that the Republican Party has that many more voter base. So I mean, it definitely speaks well to how Austin did. But I feel bad for him. I know you probably have a lot of Freedom Ninja friends as well. So I feel bad, but honestly, he did about as well he did better than I expected him to do. Honestly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's such a bummer. And hopefully in the future, he's gonna get something in the future. He's bound to. So
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. He and for whatever this were, and this is a big Trump thing. He looks the part, right? Like he looks like he would get
yeah,
elected to Senate.
yes,
So hopefully, as people can start 3D printing their own guns, they're like, you know what? This whole freedom thing sounds good, because I think that's going to be one of those things. Again, anytime something's private, people will have this public persona of I'm against this, but then so there are going to be plenty of people who are against 3D printing of guns who are 3D printing guns at home. It's like how they say at any given time a third of the bandwidth of the internet is being used on pornography, and
yeah,
and yet a third of Americans aren't saying like I'm really into porn, but
yeah,
but it's one of those, if it's private, all of a sudden a bunch of anti-porn people, you don't know what they're doing. And I think the same thing as the ability to do things from the privacy of your home, like make a firearm, are going to be available. I think it's going to slowly change people's minds. And then that next generation that's like, well, I grew up with my mom printing guns, so I'm fine with it. I do think that, I do think that that's going to bring about more desire for freedom, because
yeah.
people are used to just doing whatever they want from home. I hope that's what will happen, but we'll see. Another electoral thing that happened that there's not really any upside to this. In Missouri, voters overturned the right to work law. So the legislature had passed it, and whatever the guy's name, they got impeached. The governor, he signed into law, but there's something in Missouri law that if enough signatures are signed, that they can suspend the rule and until there's an actual referendum on it. The unions were able to do that. And so they put a lot of money into saying, this is going to end unions. This rule will end unions. There'll never be any unions ever again. And so they overturned it. It was actually pretty decisive. Like it was like 67% of people voted to overturn right to work, and only 30-something% voted for it. I can't imagine that you're any more pro labor union than I am. What I found interesting was that their argument was this rule will end labor unions. Well, all the rule said is that if you don't want to be in the labor union, you don't have to.
Right. Which says a lot about, what you're forcing people to do. If you're
exactly
on forcing people to do it, maybe you should stop doing it.
That's the thing. Like, to me, and anytime anyone brings up this stuff, I'm like,
horrible.
And this is government stuff in general, but any kind of forced anything. And I say, okay, if allowing people to choose something will end it, why will it end it? And will it end it because they're all or most of them are going to say they don't want to be members? Well, if that's the case, why are we forcing them to do it? Like, there's not really a good argument for forcing someone to do it. And it's just crazy to me that and again, this was a fear mongering, they're going to, take away you're going to have to work weekends, and they're going to take away your sick pay or whatever. Like, I mean, there was a lot of fear mongering in a Rust Belt state that, is scared of that type of thing. I do think unions are still going to lose in the long run now that they can't force people to pay dues.
Yes.
But so okay, great, you're a member. I don't want to pay. All right, So I do think long term it's still, I said when they passed that Janus ruling that they effectively defunded the Democratic Party long term when they passed that rule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't. I don't think they're going to be here very long, and union membership now is down to like I think 8% of the workforce, and that includes government workers. So I think this is more of a sort of a blip in one last final victory for them or something. But it was kind of disconcerting that a messaging campaign could change that. But do you think that how does a labor union continue to function if they're not going to be able to make any money, like get any dues?
Well, so if you can hear me, I hope you can.
I hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, so I think there's a time and place for everything. So in the past, I don't think that unions were totally out of line for what they were fighting for.
Right.
now obviously things have been fixed and there's no longer a need, which means there will be some people who try to create a need out of nothing, which is where we run into problems. And what is what the left literally hinges everything on. It's actually like feminism even. So a while ago, I believe there was a need, of course, women's suffrage, everything like that, of course.
Right.
But now when, there are equal pay laws and there are things that are completely equal, they're just manufacturing crap to fight over. And that's so divisive, and it turns our country into a totally divided nation, which makes it easier for the people in power to attain more power, which is, in my opinion, kind of like the union situation. I think they should just be done with it now. We kind of all are on the same page with most of what workers deserve, and you can't just keep forcing people to do things that they don't want to do. There's not a justifiable way to go about that. So I just think it'll eventually crumble. And I think more people are waking up to, these forced sort of manufactured problems, and they're done with it. And so I think we'll see, things like that crumble, thankfully.
Yeah.
It's about time.
Yeah. And I mean, it comes down to, like, very simply, let people decide if they want to or not.
Yeah. Why is that radical?
Right.
Like,
if
radical people, and it's just like, again, mind your business, do what you want to do. Bye.
Right. Yeah. If there is a substantial need for labor unions, then people will join them. Like, you won't have a threat of it ending because everyone's like, no, I think I'm good. And specifically with, like you were saying, with feminism, we're now, I think we're on the third wave of feminism, where it's like you said, they keep having to create a new problem. So originally, first wave feminism, I think at this point, we're all pretty much first wave feminists. Women have the same rights as men. Women are not property. Women should be able to, seek the same employment. They should be able to, not have children if they don't want. They shouldn't have to get married and forced into marriage. They shouldn't, they should have sexual autonomy. If you don't want to have sex with someone, you should have that kind of stuff. I'm not a fan of women's suffrage, but I'm also not a fan of men's suffrage. So really, I don't want anyone to vote. But that's another subject. But I understand the argument. If men can vote, obviously women can vote too. So I think we're all in agreement there. Then second wave feminism came around, and it was like, well, men are bad, and masculinity is toxic and bad, and women shouldn't even want to be wives, and burn our bras and all of that stuff. And now there's third wave feminism, which is anyone can be a woman. I'm a woman. I can be a woman. You can be a not woman, and but also men are still terrible unless I identify as a woman. Like it seems like I look forward to what the next wave of feminism is, which I think is just going to be like a LSD conniption fit or something like that. Like, they're not even words. They're just like, I find that very, very interesting. So are you telling me you don't consider yourself a feminist activist?
No, and I don't think a lot of people who realized what they're advocating for would either.
Right.
Right now you're seeing it circle back to men dominating in areas that you, as a feminist, fought to help. So now we have trans women, men, whatever, beating women in their own games, running racing or doing wrestling and all of these things. It's like you're circling back to men dominating you, and that's
exactly
insane.
In your own space. So Caitlin,
and also you should have the government citizens be paying for your tampons. Like, come on, it's like $4 a month. Get over yourself. I thought you were a strong independent woman. Apparently not. It's just ridiculous.
Right. Yeah, no, I when Caitlyn Jenner won Woman of the Year, first, and it was like, we've now come completely full circle, where someone who lived as a white man for 50 something years is Woman of the Year. And like you said, like now you're being dominated by men again. There was that, oh, what was her name, Fallon something, a trans woman, a biological male who was in UFC, or I don't think UFC, but
Yeah.
in MMA, just
Out of-
beating the crap out of women and like unhinging their jaws, and like, because it's a man, it's a biological male. And again, I'm not getting into the whole, if someone wants to identify as a woman, I don't really care. Like, I'm fine with that. Like, I have some very close loved ones that are transgender.
Yeah.
Whatever, that's not my struggle. I've had to deal with stuff. If that's their thing, I'm fine with it. I support whatever they want to do. This is a biological male beating the crap out of women in a space that's supposed to be for biological women to fight each other, and no one is allowed to say, I don't think that he, she, whatever you want to call her, should be doing that, because she still has a totally different bone and muscle structure than the women that she's fighting. So, but, and it's, and we'll fight it to the death. I think the next thing is, obviously, I think transracialism is down the road, and this will and I tell people, Chadiqua is coming, right? So he will be Chad, but he will then decide that he is a strong, independent black woman, and that doesn't need a man. And anyone, including actual biological women who are biologically black, anyone who tries to tell him different is going to be a racist and a bigot and a Nazi and a fascist. And at that point, I think we will have reached peak left.
Yeah. Well, and you see with the gender stuff, the left says that gender is a social construct. You see that anyone can just be gender fluid, all of these things. But when you see a man is physically winning at all the girls' sports, you're seeing that gender is different. It's just like, there is obviously a difference. And it's so funny, because we just have this circle of liberalism, and it's like a cat chasing its tail, or it's just crazy.
Well, so I'm somewhat sympathetic to the gender argument, because like you said, difference between sex and gender. I don't, again, with gender, if someone's like, I don't feel like a man, I feel like a woman. Okay, that's fine. I'm okay with that. And that's your life to live, and it's really none of my business. But I do think that to then go and say, well, biology means nothing.
Right.
That's garbage. Like, that's clearly not true.
Yeah.
And it's going to hurt people, because there are, and I'm not a medical expert, there are scenarios where in an emergency room, it's good to know who you're dealing with. And if you have someone that's had surgeries and everything else where it may not immediately be apparent what you're dealing with biologically, that could be a life or death thing. And, and it's crazy to me. Like, and again, that separating the whole sex and gender thing, if gender is a completely subjective thing, then why are there only two of them? Because that's the other thing. If gender is whatever I feel like, why aren't there 600,000 genders? Or 7 billion genders?
Well, and to me, it's a little frustrating, personally, sometimes when there are men who say that they feel as they liked pink, or they wore heels when they were 4 years old, all these stereotypical things about women. And that frustrates me, because it's like, I don't like pink, and I'm still wholeheartedly a woman, and I've always been a tomboy. And so that's what gets me. I read in magazines, it's like, well, I wore women's clothes when I was 4 and 5. And I'm just like, that's not what defines a woman.
Right.
But I get it. I'm just saying that's not what defines it. Maybe expand on that a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I've met a lot of women, including like feminist activists, who have said, like, how dare you call yourself a woman? You have no idea what it's like to be a woman. I have had to deal with, several situations where I was afraid I was going to get raped, and I've had to deal with menstruation, and I've had to deal with, controlling, and I mean, everyone can deal with a controlling spouse, but a physically controlling spouse. And I had to deal with, all sorts of things. And now, because you, are wearing a dress, you're a woman, and I have to identify you as a woman, and all of that. And again, I'm a very live and let live type of person, but what I don't like is people being bullied into having to affirm it, right? So I'm okay with it. But if someone else is not cool with it, then they have the right to not be cool with it. And the fact that hurts your feelings is not a reason to it's definitely not a reason to use the force of law to force them into it, but it's really not even a reason to try to socially pressure them. Like, let them, you think what you think, and how would you like them to socially pressure you into having to be a man and not say that you're a woman? So then let them do their thing too, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's I'm and I consider myself pretty moderate on the issue. Like, I'm not a hardcore you wear pants if you're a man type of thing. Like, I'm not that guy. But like and I also wonder how many, like, they used to be called tomboys, right? Like, there were women that were into playing with boys and they were into doing that kind of stuff. How many of them are being told at 7, 8 years old, "Oh, well, you're a man," is what it is. Like, I don't know, that stuff.
That's scary and frustrating because I've always, played football with the boys. I've always done all of those things, and I love being a girl. I'm glad no one told me I was a man when I was a kid.
Well, and some of that's puberty, right? Like, I mean, I wasn't like I wasn't into, like, and I'm still even not now. I was never into, like, mud racing and hunting and stuff like that. I was more of a, I was into computers and into, like, reading and things like that. More, I guess, intellectual things or whatever. Now when puberty hit, I was like, oh, I'm a man now. But I'm definitely a male. But I'm sure there are a lot of men and women that, boys and girls that, who knows what they haven't even hit puberty yet. They're not even getting their hormones yet. Leave them alone. Like, let them live their lives. And if it's manifesting as like, oh, I want to be a girl, maybe there's something else going on there that has nothing to do with gender identity. And it's like, there's like an emotional issue in the house or something. Like, I don't know. Anyway, I could go on with that forever. But Elly Maye, thank you so much for joining us. I just want to give you a chance to, if there's any final thoughts or anything else you'd like to share with our audience, please feel free to do that.
My final thought is a question for you. Have you ever been told that you should move to Somalia?
Today? Not yet. Somalia, North Korea, I get a lot. Move to North Korea. And I'm like, North Korea is the most authoritarian country on earth. No, but I had someone say, "Oh, if you like anarchy, you should move to North Korea." And I'm like, I don't think you know what anarchy is. Like, I think,
like what?
I think maybe we should circle around after you've done some reading about anarchy. And Venezuela, Venezuela is an anarchy, and it's like, no, Venezuela is in a post-socialist chaos. That's not anarchy.
Oh my gosh.
So now, do you get the Somalia thing?
No. No, I don't. I just know it happens. So I'm sorry
I definitely get it.
Especially North Korea. What? That's so weird.
Yeah, but I do get the Somalia or just the general leave. I get a lot of leave, and I'm like, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. And they're like, yeah, but you should leave. I'm like, I don't want to leave. But
it's dumb because I don't like that either. It's like, if you don't like it, leave. Where I have some of that sentiment in my feelings about certain people who are like trying to get us to be a communist country. It's like, oh my gosh, there are so many that exist. Can you just go there and stop trying to wreck our country?
I'm with you there. Yeah, I'm with you there.
But at the same time, it's like, you shouldn't just be like, oh, leave if you don't like it. We all should be able to be, trying to make our country better. We don't just abandon it because we're frustrated with something. Anyway, yeah.
Well, I mean, so I tend to be, when someone's like, we don't have socialized healthcare like XYZ country, and I'm like, you could move there and get
you could
that.
Try it out.
Yeah, like try it out maybe. Because if someone wants to make me do more stuff, I'm like, go somewhere where that's already happening and leave me alone.
Right.
But if someone's
more.
If someone has a criticism of like, I would like this to end, or I would like what, I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. And I think if someone was like, I hate America and I hate American people and I hate, everyone around me, I'd probably be like, well, maybe you should move because it sounds like you don't like it here. Yeah. That I would probably, it wouldn't be a forceful thing, but it'd be like, it sounds like maybe you'd be happier somewhere else. But
yes.
But yeah, and there are people like that. Like, people accuse me of hating America. I don't hate anyone. But there are legitimate people who are like, I hate America and I hate American people and I hate everything that this stands for and I hate it. And it's like, all right, well, I mean, I definitely am the first person to enjoy breaking down some of the fallacies in American history and talking about, the system of government. There's nowhere I don't have an illusion that there's really a better place at the moment. And I'm
Yeah.
from here and I own property here and,
Yeah.
leave me alone. But when someone's just like, I hate everything about America and I hate American people and they make me sick and they're all racist. And I'm like, I think maybe you should take a nice long vacation and see if you're not also miserable in Spain or wherever you think is better. But yeah, no, I get Somalia a lot. I love that, and you've done this before. Do you use the roads? And whenever you ask it, I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. You're right. I didn't think of the roads. But I'll expound upon something politically, and people will be like, yeah, but did you know that the government makes roads? And
Oh, really?
I love that. I want to picture the person. I try to picture the mindset of someone who's like, I've got them. They've never thought of roads. And then I'll be like, oh my gosh, the government makes roads.
Right.
What was I thinking?
This goes back to what I was saying about us not having the ability to think that we can be self-sufficient.
Right, exactly.
It's like, okay, that's the only answer? It's not.
One of my friends, Taylor Millard. He's such a good friend. I don't know how to say his last name. Anyway, he is a blogger on hotair.com, and he's a libertarian, a minarchist, and he wrote something, and he wrote something about how he would prefer there to be no taxes in talking about something with the corporate tax rate or something. And one of the commenters was like, and his comments, if you ever go to hotair.com and look at poor Taylor's comments, he feeds on their hate. But one of the people wrote, how can you be against taxes? Don't you know that the government does, and they list all these things, roads, bridges, but one of the things they listed was the Grand Canyon.
Oh my gosh.
Which is
what?
Because
guys,
before taxation there was no Grand Canyon, of course.
No, don't tell me this stuff.
And so millions of years this thing has supposedly been around. Even if you're a young earth creationist, thousands of years this thing has been around. And Grand Canyon. And then someone else wrote Yellowstone Park, which is still a park, not necessarily Yellowstone. So now whenever Taylor writes anything, I comment, why do you hate the Grand Canyon? Which is sort of my move to Somalia. Okay, well, I want to promote, before we go, I want to promote your stuff. So Red, Right, and True is your Facebook page.
Yes.
So
Instagram. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. So, tell me, like, what kind of stuff do you put there?
I've been around, making videos for about 6 years, but I kind of stopped for probably 2. And I just started revamping sort of my video style, and that's what I post mostly. And some memes occasionally, and some commentary once in a while. But I like to discuss things, even with crazy leftists. Actually, I don't really engage with the crazy ones, but I do engage with liberals, and I think it's fine to talk. It's an opportunity to maybe shed some light in areas they aren't aware of. So I make videos, and they're usually 1 to 2 minutes long, super short, about how I don't care that taxes go to making roads. So I do that and kind of post updates on my own life a little bit. And then Instagram, I started, and it's been gaining so many followers. It's crazy. I can't believe I didn't do it earlier. So I post the videos there as well, and motivational quotes. It's kind of become a thing somehow. So yeah.
Nice. So a combination of hardcore conservative politics and motivational quotes.
Yeah, it's weird. So it just kind of organically happened, but this is how pretty it looks. I don't know if you can see it, but it's really pretty and colorful. And so it's awesome.
Okay, good. And I will put it in the show notes so that people can follow you on your Red, Right, and True, and also on your Instagram. Well, Elly Maye, stick around with me for a little bit. We're going to sign off. But guys, thank you again so much for watching and for suffering through my last couple episodes where we were having some live streaming issues. And I look forward to seeing you again on the next episode of My Fellow Americans.
started off that war was pride and lies. Be a man, hold it in your eyes. Take a look up in the sky and count the doves. I believe it's 23. Every breath is every step that I've been blessed to get to breathe. Rather let you rest in praises as opposed to rest in peace. At the least, that's just me being me. Convoluted as can be. In my future, I can view it so vivid and beautifully. The distances I will leap from the man that I used to be. But now, summer doesn't exist anymore. Best case scenario, I get to finish the tour. Then chill with the gust in August before I march and march again. Dayquil in April. I know how cold this art can get. My head hurting, I must have a lot on my mind. When I got time on my hands, they put hands on my time.
And lead the way from the darkest night to the brightest day. Far through love, won't leave in vain. We will make the my skin with my friend. In reality, you are my kin, though I view the world through another's iris. If you slide in my kicks, it might fit. We might just unite and come together, become hybrid, at the least slightly like-minded. Indeed, the life I've lived brings light to kindness. All you need is a sign. Put a cease to the crimes. Put an ease to the minds like mine. Sometimes darkness is all I find. You know what they say about an eye for an eye in a time when the blind lead the blind. Who am I to deny when cry when a loved one dies? I recognize that body outside with the holes in the body that was alive. Now confined to a chalk outline. Find out how, but you never know why. It ain't even make it to the news at 9. It ain't even make it to the news at 9. That's my sister, mother, father, brother, son. That's one of mine. All these years I close my eyes, open up to only find I'm in line. There's a pointless murder happening all the time. Either lose your life or mine, caught up in them versus I. That ain't how it started, nah. How were we supposed to survive? There's a war going on outside. Who would want to raise a child? Whom the tomb is flashing by. Now you have to say goodbye when you watch them on the news at 5. Don't tell me how, tell me why. We